The sun hung low over the wide golden plains, painting the horizon in the soft fire of dusk. Dust swirled lazily in the cooling air as the day began to settle into the quiet hum of evening. A horse neighed somewhere in the distance, and the soft creak of a wooden porch broke the silence. On that porch leaned a tall cowboy, broad-shouldered, weathered by years of work and wind, his hat tipped low, shadowing eyes that had seen both the beauty and brutality of the West. His name was Luke Callahan, a widower, a rancher, and a father to 4 children who were now peering curiously from behind the post, watching the stranger standing before their father. The stranger wasn't like the others who passed through. Dusty Creek. She was dressed in a simple, cream-colored dress, her hair catching the amber light like threads of honey, and in her hands she held a book, worn at the edges, like it had traveled with her through countless miles and endless memories. Her name was Clara Bennett. She had come to town as the new teacher for the one-room schoolhouse that had stood empty since the old one left last winter. Luke had seen her walk up the path, her boots tapping softly against the dirt, her gaze steady and unafraid. When she stopped in front of him, the air seemed to shift. "Mr. Callahan," she began, her voice gentle but strong. "Your children haven't been in school for nearly 3 months. Luke's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. "Ain't much time for book learning when there's cattle to tend," he replied. "Besides, they know their numbers, and they can read the good book just fine." Clara stepped closer, sunlight catching the pages of her book as she opened it slightly. "There's more to learn than what's written in one book. Mr. Callahan, don't you think?" He studied her for a moment, then glanced at his kids. 4 pairs of eyes, wide and expectant. "Ma'am, we've all been doing just fine without any fancy lessons." But Clara didn't flinch. "Maybe," she said, "but maybe fine isn't enough. Something about her quiet courage tugged at him, a reminder of the woman he'd lost. The one who used to say that every soul deserved a chance to grow beyond the fences that kept them." Luke sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're a determined one, Miss Bennett." She smiled faintly. "I have to be." For a long moment, they stood there, 2 lives shaped by loss and duty, meeting in the fading light. When she finally turned to leave, the youngest of Luke's children, a girl no older than 6, ran forward and tugged at Clara's skirt. "Will you read to us sometime?" the girl asked shyly. Clara's eyes softened. "Of course, sweetheart." Luke watched her walk down the dusty path, her figure framed by the setting sun, and something unfamiliar stirred in his chest, something like hope. That night, as the wind whispered through, the tall grass and the stars stretched wide above the ranch. Luke sat by the fire, staring at the flicker of flames. For the first time in years, he thought about tomorrow, not with dread, but with quiet curiosity. He didn't know it yet. But the woman with the book was about to change everything. Weeks turned into months, and Clara Bennett became a fixture in the lives of the Callahans. Each morning she rode out to the ranch on a borrowed mare, bringing lessons and laughter to the porch where Dusty Boots once sat in silence. The children adored her. Sam, the oldest, learned to read poetry. Little Annie began drawing pictures of stars and flowers instead of scribbles. Even Luke found himself looking forward to her visits, though he never quite admitted it. He'd sit nearby, mending a saddle or sharpening his knife, pretending not to listen while her voice carried softly through the air, reading stories about faraway lands and brave hearts. One evening, as the sun slipped below the horizon, Clara closed her book and lingered by the porch rail. "Luke," she said softly, "I've been meaning to tell you something." He looked up from his work, sensing the weight in her tone. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the worn edges of her book. "There's something you should know before anything goes further between us." His heart stumbled at her words, but he stayed still. "Go on." Her eyes glistened in the fading light. "I can't have children, Luke. The doctors told me years ago. It's why I never married. I thought I'd be a burden to anyone who wanted a family." The air between them grew still. For a heartbeat, the wind itself seemed to stop. She looked away, shame flickering across her face. "I understand if that changes things," she whispered. Luke stood slowly, his boots scuffing against the wooden planks. He took a long breath, then walked toward her until the space between them was no wider than a sigh. "Clara," he said, his voice steady but warm, "I buried my wife 5 years ago. Since then, it's been just me and these kids. Every day I've wondered if I'd Ever meet someone who could bring light back into this place? He reached out, gently lifting her chin so their eyes met. You say you can't have children? She nodded, tears gathering. A slow, easy smile spread across his face. Good, he said softly. I've got enough kids for both of us. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The tears she'd been holding back spilled freely, and Luke caught her hand, rough and calloused, yet gentle as the evening breeze. You're not a burden, Clara, he said. You're a blessing. Behind them, the children peeked from the doorway, grinning wide as the stars began to appear. That night, laughter filled the ranch again, echoing across the fields. Clara read one more story before the fire went out, and when she looked up, she saw Luke watching her with the same quiet awe he'd felt that first day. Love had returned to Dusty Creek, not in grand gestures, but in the soft rhythm of ordinary moments.